Welcome back to LoveWorks. I'm TJ, I'll be your host. We're going to take a break from our candidate series this morning because we're taping on New Hampshire primary day. So I've been asked a good friend of mine to join me for today's taping. All the candidates are out at polls right now, so not real easy to book guests. We'll be doing more interviews with candidates after the primary. Our guest tonight is a very good friend of mine. Chris Maider. Chris was with us last year and is very active in Massachusetts politics. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
It's great to have you back.
Sure.
You know, you were on our show when we were practicing love, and you know, I like to say there are three people in my life that are mentors per se. And two of the three are here with me in studio today. The man who got me started on doing this program, Owen Provencher, the head of the production team here at Derry Television, and Chris Maider. You've been kind of like a shaman for me over the last couple of years.
I appreciate that.
Oh no, I appreciate it even more.
Well, I've been watching you develop your show. It's a natural process. It's an evolutionary process. The more, it's like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So right. I've just watched you grow. I know you were going through a time where you weren't able to do the show. Yeah. That happens. It's probably going to happen again. And you just got to ride through it and just keep going, keep writing, keep doing stuff, keep getting yourself out there. Yeah. And now you're delving into politics yourself now.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it a fun ride?
It really is. You know, we did a meet and greet here in Derry yesterday, and it was just phenomenal seeing not just the interaction with the candidates and the people, but the interaction between the candidates, the camaraderie was just phenomenal. How are things going down in Mass?
We just had our primary last week. I got to attend the Scott Lively primary party, and what was amazing about that is he ended up getting just shy of 40% of the entire primary vote. The numbers shook out more like 36, 37%. But when you start counting, they're actually still counting some of the ballots. And so when it basically turned into a 60-40 split between Baker and Scott Lively. Here comes the problem, and I was discussing it with you guys earlier. Just shy of 810,000 votes were cast in the Republican primary. Well, actually, in all the primaries, because there were there were two Democrats running. Lively got about 100,000. Baker got about 175,000. So you're talking 275,000 plus or minus. Let's just round it up to 300,000. So you're talking about 800,000 votes between the two Republicans. They only got about 300,000. That leaves over 500,000 going to the Democrat, right, which is a very real possibility that we could be switching the governorship in Massachusetts come November. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Part of this is part of the Mass GOP's fault. Mass GOP eats their own all of the time. I've been covering their campaigns for a very long time, and it's not even just Mass GOP. I've talked to other candidates across the country. Yeah. Their local GOPs do the same thing. Right. For some reason, they've got issues with conservatives and grassroots. They always want to get somebody who's got big numbers, big donors, somebody who's connected within there. And then what ends up happening is a lot of times the Republicans end up losing these races.
Right.
I think what's going to change it this time is the advent of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has come to various states and stumped for various people, and they've ended up winning their primaries. Mm-hmm. I was on a show last week where the host was in disagreement with me. Donald Trump's going to Texas for Ted Cruz. That's pretty much a shoo-in. Mm-hmm. There have been rumors that before November, Donald Trump might make an appearance in Massachusetts to stump for some of the Republican candidates there, which I think would be great. Yeah. It'll show solidarity, put us on a national stage, and it'll really ignite the base. Yeah. But getting back to Baker, it's not looking good. Yeah. Not looking good at all for him come November.
Wow. So I want to talk about some of the other races. I haven't really been following Mass politics just because I've been so active up here in New Hampshire.
And I get like that too. I haven't been following much in New Hampshire because I've been following Mass mostly this year. And in fact, a lot of the other candidates from across the country, I haven't really reached out. This was a big governor's race this year in Massachusetts, so I've been concentrating on that.
The one I've been following mostly was the Capuano Presley. Race, and
that was interesting, huh?
As I watched the commercials, which is really all I had to go by with them, I didn't really research it online. Capuano's whole entire campaign was based on destroying Trump. I don't want to elect somebody who's focused on destroying somebody else's life to make their life better. I was real excited to see Presley win. She seemed okay. I don't know anything about her. I know she was on the Boston City Council, but I was very happy to see that.
And I think it was her seat that was taken over by a Republican.
Okay.
Yes, I was talking to another friend through social media, and a Republican took over her seat because she moved up to the state representative seat, or Capuano State Senate, I think. Anyway,
right. I was real happy to see her win until yesterday. I was watching the news and saw her in a campaign event for Elizabeth Warren, which kind of threw me back, you know. It went from the frying pan into the fire, you know.
Okay, so here's the thing with the Democrats. The Democrats will tacitly fire at each other, somewhat go after each other during the primary race, but they won't eat their own.
Yeah.
That's different in the Republican Party. We've already covered that.
Right.
But what will end up happening is, once the primary is over, what will end up happening is the Democrat Party will totally solidify. You're right. Presley was there for Warren. Warren will be there for Presley.
Right.
If Capuano won, it would have been the same thing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter. They're all birds of a feather. What was interesting is somebody, and Capuano, I'm sorry, the guy's a career Democrat, and just part of that whole Democrat machine, which has to be cleaned up and shipped out of there. So you haven't really shifted the Democrat Party all that much in the state of Massachusetts with a win like Presley's. You're basically exchanging a hat is all you're doing.
Right.
You know, you've got one career Democrat being switched out by another career Democrat.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. The whole bashing of Trump, that is something that I think a lot of mainstream Democrats are trying to be like, stop that impeachment thing. You know, even though that is their plan, they're seeing it's a negative reaction, poll-wise, even amongst Democrats. And I said this to my friend Gary Rosenberg on his show the other week, that the mainstream Democrats, they want to shy away from this because they want to try to hold on to power or gain more seats.
Right, let the PACs go after Trump, right?
Yeah, right. There's a good idea. Yeah, let the political action groups, the independent groups. Yeah, sure. Right.
And I'm sure, you know, there's just so much that we don't really hear about in mainstream media, which makes it even more difficult to follow the process.
Yeah, we're not going to be privy to it. Even people in the press corps are not privy to it. They're like mushrooms. They're fed you know what and told when to grow and what to do and what to say.
It's really sad the way the government has transformed, become such more of a tyrannical power. That's the way I see it.
You also need to be careful. There's a push going on now. Do away with the electoral college. Nationalize the election.
Okay,
the last thing you want to do is have the federal government running our elections.
You know. And I wanted to hit on that. Electoral college. Now, I was involved in the '88 campaign with Michael Dukakis, and when that blew up, I said, "Screw politics! I'm not doing this anymore." And because of my personal fight in the government, with the government, it's gotten me involved in this election considerably. And there's a lot of things I don't know. And in speaking with different candidates, I've learned a great deal about it. You know, what does the executive council do? I never knew. You know, Jane Cormier filled me in on that.
Good.
I don't really know much about the electoral college.
The electoral college is basically it is a broad representation, much like our Congress. There's 500 and Senate. There's 535 across the country electors from every state all over the place. And these people are determined by the election of majority parties within the state. If you have a state or an area, like California is, believe it or not, California has a large Republican area.
Yeah.
Where the Democrats are is in that little LA. If you look at an electoral map of the United States, it's virtually all red, with little archipelago island areas of blue. Well, if you look at where they are, they're mostly in major cities, major metropolitan areas.
Right.
And what the Electoral College does is it evens out the entire map across the United States. So even though something like Wyoming has maybe 500 or 600,000 people total in their entire population, they still get to elect, they still have an equal say when the presidential election comes along. Now, this only works in the presidential election. In senatorial, congressional, locals, mayorals, that's where the quote-unquote democratic process takes place. The democratic process takes place where, quite literally, majority vote wins, which is why it's very important to get out at these local elections. Because the local elections end up electing your electors for the national presidential election. So if you get out there and you push a Democratic candidate, Democrat mayor, Democrat governor, Democrat legislators, then what you end up doing is you have a majority of electors in your state that are Democrat. The same applies to the Republicans. If you keep going after, you get a Republican mayor, you get a Republican legislator. Hell, you even get a Republican dog catcher in there. If he's a registered Republican and part of the convention, part of his local Republican city committee, he's a delegate to the convention, a delegate and an elector to the national presidential. So it's the same thing both sides. Which is why local elections are just as important as any others. A lot of people don't see that. They're like, oh, it's just a city councilor. Who cares?
Right.
Well, 4 years from now, the city councilor might be Democrat or Republican, and it'll tip that scale to 70. This is why the left has completely lost it over this, Donald. I'm sorry to take over.
No, please. Yeah.
So I'm going to educate your audience. This is why the left has completely gone crazy over the election of Donald Trump, and why Robert Reich is a big pusher of getting rid of the Electoral College. The premise being, well, Hillary won the popular vote. Absolutely correct. But again, we're only talking a few million votes. But that's not how presidents are elected. What has happened since 2010, all the way up quite literally until the election of Donald Trump, is well over 1,200 seats across the United States changed hands from Democrat to Republican. And like I said earlier, we're talking mayors, legislators, we're talking dog catchers, we're talking people in their city, their Republican city committees. And again, you see those signs, elect Sue whatever for Republican committee, and you're like, what is that vote? These are very important votes. But that's what's happened since 2010, and nobody paid attention to this. It was kept under wraps throughout the entire Obama administration because they didn't want that exposed in the media to make it look like, Obama's agenda not going over too well with the rest of the country. This groundswell was happening. Right. Well, what happened in 2016? You have all these seats that have changed, all these new electors that are Republican. And so if you watched on that night, election night, 2016, and I was on air and I was tracking it and I had a few people call into the show, I literally kept watching the map change. You'd go back, I'd go and do some stuff on the show, talk to the guests, and I'd refer back to the computer and the map. You kept seeing those numbers, and I knew exactly what was happening. Donald Trump, right out of the gate, was already leading the pack, the Electoral College. And he was leading this, and I kept saying it on the show. I said, well, this is because of that. All these 1,200 seats that switched over. Even though Hillary Clinton took Massachusetts, she did not take Worcester County. And that's because of a strong Republican presence in Worcester County.
Right.
And I'm on the Worcester Tea Party board.
Yeah.
We were a huge influence on that.
Awesome.
So
Good
that's
job.
what we actually broke the logjam in Massachusetts. But this, again, getting back to the popular vote, people like Robert Reich and everyone from the left do away with the Electoral College, do away with it, restructure our voting. They want to nationalize the vote. There are also these guys doing ranked choice voting. All of this is a very bad idea, folks. Our founders were very astute in putting the Electoral College together because they knew that there would be high population areas and very low rural areas. and that if you had a democratic process electing the president, you'd always end up electing whatever the majority vote is. And if
Right.
the majority vote is always Democrat, then you're always going to have a Democratic president.
Right.
So the founders were very astute about that. But
Yeah.
like anything else that you've learned from the left is hell-bent on destroying everything that is traditional in the United States. And that's my dissertation on the Electoral College.
Well said, my friend. And it actually leads me into the next
Go
point
ahead.
I had. You turned me onto a phrase I'd never heard before, and once again, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you explain.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I have an idea what it is, but explain the blue wave.
The blue wave it's a euphemism for the Democrats taking control again of the House and Senate. This is contrived media.
Now, is this just, are you talking about Massachusetts?
No,
or
across the
nationally?
country.
Okay.
Across the country, there's a lot of races going on. There's a lot of seats that are up for grabs. And the media is doing what they always do. They're trying to manipulate the polls. They're trying to manipulate public opinion. But there is one small problem with this so-called blue wave. If you've watched, and I see your question coming up here about the Kavanaugh hearings, if you've been watching the Kavanaugh hearings, I mean, that is a Barnum and Bailey circus show right there. Absolute insanity. And you've got to ask yourself, really, this is going to bring on the blue wave, this type of behavior? Let's look at Antifa. I've been at some of the Boston Free Speech rallies and resist Marxism rallies. I've spoken at a couple of them. These Antifa people show up in black masks and baseball bats, and they call us the Nazis. And we're just there talking about our founding and our Second Amendment rights. And I've been to several of these things. I have yet to see a Nazi there. But yet they show up with baseball bats and they riot. We were down in Providence a couple of months ago. August. And they did. They rioted. They got violent. State police had tear gas canisters flying through the air, and all we wanted to do was get up there and talk about it.
Yeah.
So this concept of a blue wave, and again, look at Maxine Waters, the stuff she's been publicly saying. Look at some of the public things that Elizabeth Warren has been saying. Again, Cory Booker. Let's look at Kamala Harris. All of these things that these people publicly do and say, the country is watching that. And not only are us conservatives and or Republicans seeing that, and we would never go down that road and vote for them anyway, what is happening also is a lot of mainstream Democrats, what we call blue dog Democrats, are also watching this. And this is not the wagon they want to hitch themselves to. They don't want to be part of that wackyism, that wacky ultra-left. So look at the rise of the socialists. Ocasio-Cortez, who's just another woman, and then Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City. Just Google her stuff, read her stuff, watch some of her YouTube stuff, all of them. And they say and do the wackiest things. And you really do have that moment where you're like,
Oh, yeah.
What? And these people are full. We're going to win. We're going to take back the House and we're going to impeach Donald Trump. And that's the other thing. It's like they're just so, it's this hatred, this holding it into your bosom hatred that they have for the president.
Yeah.
And even Maxine Waters has said, once we get rid of Trump, we're going to go after Mike Pence. Now, I can understand if there was something egregious going on. There isn't. 2 years into the investigation, Mueller has found nothing. Yeah. And of course, there's absolutely nothing on Mike Pence. We're talking about a born-again Christian here, right. Mike Pence. I mean, this guy's as pure as the driven snow. Yeah. So, I mean, you want to impeach these people. You've high crimes and misdemeanors says so in the Constitution. But you've got to you better have a really good case. Yeah. Because two things are going to happen. One is going to backfire on you first. You're not going to get the 67 votes in the Senate, regardless of how this election turns out. Again, the nation is going to see it. And so it's only going to be 2 years down the road that all of those lefty Democrats get voted out again. The country is fickle now. Yeah. So this whole blue wave is not going to happen. The official meat and potatoes prediction is the Republicans hold on to the House and Senate, and or we gain anywhere from 3 to 5 seats.
Awesome. I hope that is the case.
Yeah.
I really
no,
do.
that I've been watching. I firmly.
If there's
the
anybody...
polls are not showing it. The polls are not shaking out the way the left wants it to, and they keep shooting themselves in the foot, and that's what's going to happen.
I wish you studied football like you study politics, we'd make a lot of money.
Sure.
Oh, goodness. Okay, let's get into Mr. Kavanaugh.
Have you been watching?
I've been watching some. The funniest thing was the other day, I don't remember who the Republican senator was or congressman, whatever it was, but he just looked at the other Democrats and said, "Are you guys done yet? Are we ready to go?" You know?
Yeah, poor Grassley. He opens it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he had an opening statement, like he wanted to pontificate a little bit. No, he's just doing the official language. We're bringing this meeting to order, yada, yada, Congressman so-and-so, Senator such and such. He's just listing the people. He's doing the minutes. He's doing the legal stuff just so that he can, put it officially into record that, yes, the meeting has begun and yada, yada. Instantaneously, Kamala Harris, everybody else, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can we adjourn, point of order, blah, blah, blah. And Grassley didn't even get the first couple of sentences out.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, again, getting back to our blue wave concept, it's like the country is watching this.
Yeah.
The country is watching what you people are doing. And you're not only alienating more conservatives and Republicans, you're alienating a whole lot of Democrats too, because even they're like embarrassed by this.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the protests. Those people, a lot of them are paid. That has been proven.
The hate-free zone? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the protesters that are behind Kavanaugh in the audience.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them are paid. They're paid for that. Oh, yeah, the hate-free zone, that woman, Doris. This is Doris. Don't be like Doris. Yeah, she did, yeah. And then there was that woman, I'll be very careful with my language. I know I'm on public access TV. There was the woman who was dragged out of there. She's having her menstrual right there as a protest. It's like, again, really, this is your blue wave?
Wow.
This is your message, Democrats? This is your vision of the future of America here?
Scary. It really is scary.
And Kavanaugh is another guy. It's like Pence. You study his record. He worked, not Alito. Who was the one that just died there?
Scalia?
Scalia, thank you. He worked as a law clerk and an understudy with Anton Scalia. Nothing came up even then. Nothing came up in his judgeships even before he started working under Scalia. All of his records are out there as public records. And here's Booker screaming and yelling about how we need to see more of the emails. We need to see more of the documents. All the documents are out there. Just there's no reason why you have to grandstand. But people like Booker and Harris, they grandstand like that because they're depending on that far left fringe element to not do their homework.
Right.
To just go by what they say so that they continue screaming and yelling and protesting as they sit in the audience. They can disrupt it more. There's no vision, there's no progress, there's no grand plan. There's just disruption and anger and hatred and just, again, more disruption. So they depend on that to happen. But they themselves know. This is why, folks, they're lying right to your face. They know exactly what they're doing. Where Booker says, well, we just released these emails and here's my Spartacus moment. Because they know that the far left isn't going to investigate that literally at midnight, the night before the congressional delegation in charge of it released all those emails. These people work, the staffers, they work 24/7. You might only see your congressman and senator once in a while during the business hours, but their staff, they work 24/7. Yeah. So midnight before the hearing, it's like, yep, here's another 40,000 emails.
Right.
And they're all stupid emails. They're literally what Hillary Clinton was talking about. Yoga class, the kid's wedding, got to pick it up from so-and-so.
Right.
Oh, did you get that document from school? Yada, yada. Joe, can you pick up blah, 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 blah. That kind of, it's all stupid stuff. Maybe a couple of things are in there. It's like, oh, make sure we show up at time for this hearing at such and such.
Yeah.
But it's not all the real technical stuff. Is in his decisions, his official decisions that he's put down. And there's nothing. They're just grandstanding. They're lying right to your face and lying right in front of the camera.
Out of fear.
Out of fear.
Out of fear. Entirely
And
out of fear.
it's an unwarranted fear. Let me give you a little dissertation here again. When you looked at Reagan and Bush Jr., their appointments, You heard the same arguments back then. They're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. The women are going to be put back into the kitchen, and all these gains made in civil rights are all going to be overturned. Well, here we are in 2018, and guess what, folks? None of that has ever happened. Every
Right.
time you have a conservative judgeship, every time you have a conservative president, a conservative appointee, they scream and yell the same fear-mongering, and none of it happens. However, conversely, every time you have a Democrat president, a Democrat appointee, a Democrat judgeship put in, guess what ends up happening? Every single agenda the left pushes is forced upon us.
Yeah.
Go through the record and think about it. Transgenderism, gay marriage, the bathroom issues.
Yeah.
Think about all of it. Whether
Yeah.
you're for it or against it, I'm not making any judgment. I'm simply pointing out a fact. Every
Right.
time the left is in charge, their agenda forced upon us.
Yeah.
Look at the history of the United States just over the past 50, 60 years. Every time there's a conservative in there, you hear the fear-mongering,
Right.
but none of it comes to fruition.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, the I don't even know the word for it. Just the manipulation of the system by so many is
Well,
really.
that's perfect. I like to use the term we're knee-deep in an Orwellian nightmare.
It seems that way.
You know, years ago, you could sit there and say, "Oh, that's very Orwellian," and you know, the control of the media and cameras, and watch out, people are watching us. That was in the 80s. That was in the 90s. But here's 2018. We are
Yeah.
stuck. I mean, the press lies to us, television lies to us,
Right.
politicians lie to us. I mean,
It's hard to deal
it's
with.
crazy.
And, I found,
Police lie to you. Everybody lies to you.
When I was-
I'm not lying to you.
When I was in D.C. last year, we tried to make an effort to get into the White House and the Capitol building and try to get our word out on my desire for family law reform, and had no success whatsoever. I mean, I made a few contacts, which may help somewhere down the road, but what I found is, especially in doing this candidate series, working with local politicians, like you said, as far as the Electoral College, getting in with my town council and
Yeah.
the state reps and state senators and the governor. I don't know if your show has endorsed any candidate at all, but I'm figuring
Deal.
Deal was on there. But I threw our endorsement for LoveWorks behind Gilletta Jarvis,
Good.
who's running for governor, and she's a real person. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We've done quite a bit of work.
She was
together,
great
her
when
and
she
I.
called into my show. It was great.
Yeah, yeah, and nothing against Aaron Day. I think Aaron Day's got a great plan, a great idea, and if he gets in it, we don't lose. We need to get Sununu out, but that's a different story. That being said, what I found is that in working with these people, I'm able to get a voice in Concord, which will then, and I've even been talking a lot with Eddie Edwards, who's running for
Yeah, start
Congress.
small. You are much better off working within your. Are you part of the Republican City Committee here in Derry or any? Oh, get into it.
I know. I'm
Get
talking
into
to Dave
all of
Love
that.
about that.
Well,
yeah.
you're still what? How long have you been on? A year and a half, 2 years?
Coming up on 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So you're still kind of young, but you will get involved in that. That'll get a lot of doors open for you. And I'm going to give you some information after we're done with the show here about getting a press pass and all that other
Okay,
stuff. So
good.
I know the people to hook you up with, and that will open doors.
Yeah.
You get on a registry and you get official press passes. The doors are open. You can walk into city council meetings, film. You can go to Concord and go to the state meeting and
Right.
start filming. Just flash that badge. You're in the press pool. Start filming.
That would be
These
wonderful.
guys got cameras. I'm sure they'll lend you a camera to go in and go do it and bring it on, and
Yeah,
you can air it and start covering it that way.
I'd
So,
love to. Yeah, that'd be great.
I want to.
Anyways, back to the
I want
subject.
to tell an interesting story about how you're getting to meet candidates and stuff like that. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot over the years, and so we covered a lot of the Massachusetts Senate campaigns, and I had Beth Lindstrom, John Kingston, Jeff Deal, and Shiva Ayadurai on my show. Jeff Deal has been on my show multiple times.
Yes.
And Jeff and I go way back, all the way back to 2014. He and I had been in contact. I worked with him on the gasoline tax, yada yada. I did some standouts and stuff. Long story short, every campaign season, I give my official endorsement of my candidates that I like just prior to either the primary or the election itself.
Yeah.
And even though I had all the candidates on, and I had Shiva on the show a couple of times, I eventually ended up endorsing Jeff Deal. And so we're at the Labor Day parade in Marlborough, Mass. A lot of the candidates showed up there. Park my car and come walking around the corner. I walk around the corner, and there's the Shiva campaign. There's his bus and everything else. And I'm sorry, I'm like a babe in the woods. You know, I walked right up. I was like, hey, Shiva, hey, guys, what's up? I'm shaking hands. What's going on? They all turned to me. They practically ripped my head off. They looked at, how could you do that? I was like, well, at first I was like, oh. What could you do that? How could you endorse Jeff Deal? We were on your show, blah, blah, blah. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, crap. I was like, oh, man.
I know.
was like, so they bit
You're worried about the backlash.
They bit my head off there. I ended up losing some Facebook friends. We're very disappointed. We're very disappointed. I was like, look, that was my decision. You know, no denigration to you. Thank you for coming on the show. Anyway, I got my head bitten off. Up above from them in the line was Beth Lindstrom's group. Total polar opposite. Hi, Beth, Chris. Oh, Chris, hey, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much. Yada, yada, yada. I said, well, you know, I did endorse Jeff. And she's like, oh, blah, 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 don't worry. It's like, hey, she's like, hey, can you get a picture of us with the? I was like, okay, fine.
Wow.
So I was like, see, this is how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
I've given every candidate an equal shot, equal time. Again, everybody who listens to my show, wasn't pigeonholing any questions, wasn't trying to get them cornered into anything. Just wanted to hear from them. But you really do. You find out in a moment like that, it's like, well, good thing I didn't endorse you, Shiva. It's like, Jesus, you lost it.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I came over to shake your hand and wish you good luck. You bit my head off.
Yeah.
I walked 20 feet up to your opponent's campaign, and she's happy to see me.
Yeah.
So it's like, gee, maybe I should have endorsed Beth Lindstrom. It's like,
yeah, right.
You know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Jeff Deal was very thankful for my endorsement, and but that's what happens. This is one thing you're going to discover as you get along. You're going to have to pick a side, and you're going to have the other side.
Yeah, I know, and that was a great concern to me going public before the primary with my endorsement, but I have I have no problem with it, and
stick by your conviction.
You know, and I'm hoping that whoever wins the Aaron Day and Gillette are both. Jarvis are both libertarian candidates for governor. And we got started in the process here with the candidate series a little bit late, and I wasn't able to get as many people on before the primary. But I was able to talk to both of them. Gillette did a show and Aaron did a show. And that was really the only race I could actually endorse. You know, the other people that I've endorsed are local, state rep people like Dave Love.
Plenty more races coming down the line, my friend.
Oh, I know. That's the thing.
More chances.
And like you've told me all along, it's going to be an educational process. And anything that is even hints at negativity will come back to some extent, like not endorsing Aaron Day. I may get some backlash from that. I don't know. I hope not, because I really like Aaron. But I'm prepared for it. You know, I understand that, and especially listening to you talk about it.
Stick with your conviction and don't worry about it. And don't. Who knows? You might even make a mistake here and there. It's just it's what ends up happening. I mean, I've endorsed people early on in the race. When I first started interviewing, I've gotten backlash from that. And don't be afraid to maybe even endorse two people at the same time, And people will say, oh, you can't do that. Well, please show me where it's etched in stone or written in the sky that I'm not allowed to do that. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. It's your show, and first of all, you're an American, and I can do whatever I want.
Right.
But what it does is it shows that, you know what, I'm a little split between these two people. I want to see how it's going to shake out. We've got two great candidates here that have really great messages. And I'll see you guys in the field. I'll see you as the campaign goes along and how things shake out. Yeah. But don't be afraid to make those decisions and stick by them. And don't let anybody tell you that, oh, you shouldn't have done that. What are you thinking? Right. Just kind of sorry, thank you, and move on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, before we wrap things up, I just want to give you a chance to talk about meat and potatoes. Tell our friends about the show and when it's on, how it can be seen.
Sure, okay. Great, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Christopher Maider. The show is called The Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. We broadcast on Spreaker.com. You heard that right, Spreaker.com. Spreaker.com. You basically just go to Spreaker.com/show and then /meat and potatoes. It'll pop right up. There's a whole listen live thing. We are on Tuesday and Wednesday nights from 9 to midnight. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a soft opening of my show because I moved and I tore my entire studio apart. But everything's put back together, so I'm going to do a soft opening tonight on my show. Maybe we'll have TJ call in later on tonight, and we can talk about today and how the race shook out. And then Wednesday, I've got a whole bunch of candidates calling into the show. And they'll be talking about moving forward, going into the general election. Again, that's Tuesday and Wednesday night, 9 p.m., Spreaker.com/show/meat and potatoes. So there you go.
And there is an E in potatoes.
Yeah, an E in the potatoes, yes, exactly. I told you guys in there to make sure that. And they're looking at him, it's like,
Yep,
E in potatoes.
right.
That's an homage to former Vice President Dan Quayle.
Dan Quayle.
And you have to look it up to see what I mean by that.
Okay,
so there you go.
Cool. Well, we still got a little bit of time.
Go ahead.
Shall
I do a song and dance?
No, what I'm hoping is, another thing I actually did want to talk to you about was I'd like to invite you to come up. We're going to start taping more shows in October. I'd like you to come up and host a show or two. And
love it.
That would give you a chance to get to meet some New Hampshire candidates
I'd
and
love
find
to.
out a lot about
That'd
what's
be
going
great.
on in there. Okay.
I do. I want to expand. That's a good idea because I want to expand that. Not only get more onto television, but eventually maybe in the city of Worcester, get my own show going too. That's kind of that's not a long-term thing, but sometime I'm thinking next year really start to get that going. But I want to branch out into New Hampshire. New Hampshire's not far away from where I am in Worcester, and the races here are very important. And as we get into 2020, the primary, the presidential primary, it's the first in the country. And New Hampshire, you guys have got a lot of shenanigans going on, and you got to clean that up. There's some not so cool things going on with your presidential primaries here,
right.
And that needs to. And that's something I'd like to, as we get into October and into next year, we'll do some shows. We'll start investigating that.
Yeah, I definitely want to get. I want to go all in on the 2020 election.
Good.
I've actually had a presidential candidate for 2020 on the show, Chris Mark, back when we were practicing love.
Good.
So that's definitely something I want to pursue.
Right.
And
I know a few.
think it
I
would
know
be
a few
great.
independents too that I can. They've been on my show. They're going to throw another run in.
I believe Chris is actually a libertarian.
Yeah, independents, libertarian. There's another guy I know. He's out in Oregon. I gotta look him up though. He's in my archive somewhere, so he's going to throw it in. Ed Baker, I want to say his name is. Yeah.
Baker. Yeah, that's a common name in politics. Baker.
Baker. Interesting.
Yeah, I know. You think about it, but that's awesome. And we got a couple of minutes. I just want to hit on the two-party system and the dysfunction therein. Especially because I've been really pushing the Libertarian Party. You know, there's a gubernatorial candidate in Illinois, Cash Jackson, who is really doing a great job out there.
Man. Yep.
Like I said, Bruce Nathan down in Florida, Jennifer Wynn out in Missouri. There's some great people running under the Libertarian Party, Independent Party, and you see every choice you get is a Republican or Democrat, and it's just. It's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's undemocratic.
Getting back to what I had mentioned about the founders, our founders were adamant about not having a two-party system. It basically narrows the field, and it pits one party against the other. And what ends up happening, which is what you see now, is you can't really tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican anymore.
Yeah.
And both parties. Unfortunately for the Democrats, they are adopting more of the socialist agenda. But for the longest time under the Democrat Party, the socialists were like the libertarians, marginalized. It's like, oh yeah, those guys over there. We kind of understand what they're saying, but we're not really on board with them. That's changed in the Democrat Party. They're adopting more of the socialists. Look at Bernie Sanders. Look what happened with how his were. Cortez and Cynthia Nixon. These people are avowed socialists, and they're getting a lot of press, a lot of coverage, and they're bringing in a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Not so for the Republican side. I am actually working with some people in Massachusetts to get a chapter of the Constitution Party established in Massachusetts. Constitution Party is a nationally recognized party, but not in every state. We're trying to work on that in Massachusetts.
Oh, I'd like
But our
to get-
founders were very adamant about having multiple party systems. And a lot of it has to do with they insisted that there not be a majority control of one party or the other in our House and Senate. Now, to a certain degree, that might seem counterintuitive, considering the way our system is set up now.
Right.
But they wanted that because they were in fear of what we see now, this partisanship, the bickering, one agenda over another agenda, and the constant use of the term democracy.
Yeah.
What do you hear all of the time from press, politicians, well, our democracy. Well, our democracy. Well, you know, our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
The United States is not a democracy.
No.
It was never intended to be one. It was never supposed to be one. It isn't one. It's a constitutional republic.
Right.
And our founders were very getting back to the electoral college. That's the way they set that up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole system
go.
under a republic to ensure that there's equal voicing all across the country when it comes to a presidential election.
Yeah.
The multiple party system, actually they do better in Europe with multiple parties than we do here in the United States, it is to ensure equal representation of all the people from all the different walks of life, all the different political opinions, all across the country. Now, again, you might think to yourself, well, what if we have to pass a law or whatever, and, we need a majority of vote. Again, our founders were very adamant about this.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, I hate
I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt
I'm sorry.
you. We're running out of time. Thank you so much. You've been so
I tend to keep
educational.
going here, folks.
We'll pick it up tonight. How's that? On
Sounds
your
good,
show.
yeah.
That's
We'll
great.
pick it up on the show. Thanks.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
I can't thank you enough for being here and everything you've done, and you mean the world to me, and I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for having
Thanks,
me on.
bro. You are the best. Okay, we're going to be wrapping up here. I've got a special segment for you now. We're going to be showing you a video by a good friend of mine, Joyce Catalano. She's right now in Washington, D.C., along with many others, doing an event called For the Children. There are links all over social media to it. If you need to find it, you can reach me at tjmoonen at AOL or at gmail.com. Easy for me to say, huh? tjmoonen at gmail.com. Feel free to email me if you need links to anything, the shows, the events going on, the primary results. I'll have those on later, hopefully tonight, should be by tomorrow. So have a great day, everyone, and enjoy the video. Thanks for joining us. And remember, love is just a word, so you give it meaning.
to Washington, D.C. between September 8th and September 12th for the children. www.forthechildren.center.
Thank you all so much for joining us, and be sure to be here next time. Good night, Andrea.